Stay indoors and avoid contact with other people. Do not attempt to telephone outside your local area. Do not panic and remain civil and calm.
Hello everyone, we're here taking a closer look at everybody's console Rapture. I'm here joined by Dan Pinchbeck, creative director of the Chinese room. Hi there. Hi. Dan, what can you tell us about everybody's console Rapture?
It's an open world game. It's a story-driven adventure mystery. It's a science fiction about the end of the world, and it's about a small valley in rural England where you are trying to find out just what's happened, really, I guess is the shortest way of putting it.
Okay, it's definitely a different game when you look at a lot of other games out right now. There's not any combat really going on. It's more going around and discovering things. How does it work kind of in the game? How do you learn a story when there's no people around?
So, I mean, the big thing about the game for us is that we really wanted to kind of like tell a story that only a game could tell, of actually we want to create a world, pack it full of story, and let the player then go explore, wander, discover for themselves, and try and piece together the mystery for themselves. So really, it's a relatively simple game mechanically, in that you can move around, interact with objects, turn TVs on, pick up phones, and there are these strange kind of breaches in kind of like reality that you can discover, that you can kind of tune into using the DualShock to kind of uncover the scenes behind them. But the key thing for us is really that it's about a player kind of wanting to be drawn into this world and kind of like really wanting to find out what happened here, what happened to these people, and that's the key kind of driver of it, is that kind of innate sense of discovery that we have as gamers, that we really want to know, we want to drive in there and explore and kind of uncover everything. And I guess it's a game which is appealing to that kind of instinct that we have as gamers, really.
So yeah, there isn't a whole lot of backstory when you start up the game, and you're going to have to kind of discover it as you go along. Can you tell us anything about the protagonist of the game? Are we going to learn more about his identity or hers?
You learn about their identity as you go through the game. Exactly why you're there and what's going on is kind of core to it. So it's a really hard game to talk about, because we can't really talk about the story without actually telling people the whole point of playing the game in the first place, which makes it very frustrating from a dev point of view. Yeah, no, that stuff is part of it. You do start off knowing almost nothing about the world you're going into. And that's kind of, I guess that's for us is what's really interesting about it, because it's non-linear, and because there's the players not being openly directed to any particular parts of the story, the order in which they discover facts about what's gone on and could change radically from player to player, which means everyone might end up with very different interpretations of the events as they happen. So that's scary, but it's really exciting as well.
The game is definitely a gorgeous game, and it's very atmospheric with the music and everything. Also, you mentioned there were 6 different areas that you're going to be exploring. Are we going to see any kind of different settings for these areas? Are they going to be very different, or is it all going to be in the same kind of English countryside?
There's 6 areas in the English countryside, so we've really tried to create the valley that the game takes place in to really make it feel as authentic and real as possible. So rather than going for kind of like overly kind of like dramatic, this area feels like this and this area feels like this, we tried to get that continuity. So the world does kind of evolve as you go through it, and there are changes, and the locations definitely have their own identity. But they're all part of this single valley that we really want players to, by the time you finish playing through the game, you should feel like you know it really, really well, like this is a real space for you.
Okay. How does progression work when you're in an area? What does it take to be able to move on to the next one? Because it does seem like you can do everything in the order that you want to, but is it possible to miss things and still move along in the game?
Yeah, it is. I mean, so in each area there are the kind of the glowing balls which represent these kind of like these strange phenomena. There are a number of those, and finding all of those unlocks a kind of a mini-climax in that area, and each of the areas kind of relates to one of the central characters in the story. So to find out exactly what happened to that character, you have to find each of those places within that area. But that's only about a third of the story in each space. And then you also have scenes which will trigger just by being near them, and you have radio broadcasts, TVs. So it's possible to actually clear the game and maybe do like a third of the game. And that's, again, it's the scary thing, but it's the fun thing as well, because it's about kind of going, our job is not to force players to engage with this. Our job is to inspire players to want to engage with this and to want to spend time in these places, kind of going, well, I'm going to try and see what's in that house, and what's if I go down there, and what happens if I turn on that TV. Which is, yeah, it's risky, but it's, I think that's how you get something special as well, is by sort of like being willing to let players find it themselves.
Is there a fear of kind of players getting the narrative in the wrong order? Because it does seem like there is kind of a narrative happening, but there is also definitely a possibility of getting it in the wrong order. Is that anything you're worried about?
The whole thing is written as a non-linear piece, so there's kind of like there's multiple plot lines happening simultaneously and developing simultaneously, but they don't happen in linear order. So you may be finding something like at the beginning of the game, but actually the setup to that scene or that event or that piece of story might be coming kind of like an hour or 2 hours later. So it's, from a writing point of view, it was really interesting. So we had this kind of like, I think it was only actually when we went into the studio to record the voice actors was the first time we really put the script in linear order and had them record it in linear order. But the way it's been developed in game was always in this very sort of non-linear fashion. So yeah, it's almost guaranteed that a player, that you won't find things in quite the same way as someone else who plays it. But that's really interesting, because that means like if you kind of like happen to go down a particular area and uncover a different scene, you might have a completely different take on why a character's behaving the way they're behaving than someone who went and found another scene in a different order, and that makes it really exciting, I think. And no other medium can do that. That's games. That's just games, you know.
That sounds excellent. So when are we looking? What are we looking at release date-wise or window?
Window is this summer, so it'll definitely be out by the end of summer. Apart from that, we're still waiting for an absolute date, but yeah, it's coming soon.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to taking a closer look at Everybody's Gone to the Rapture when it comes out this summer. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how things worked out.
Or didn't.
Or didn't. Right.